when we embrace each other like that. And isn't it fun to look each other, who actually looked someone in the eye and said, "You are beautiful"? Hey, what did that feel like? Wasn't that powerful? If you did it, thank you for your courage. And doesn't it feel good? Even when you know it's coming, doesn't that feel good to hear that from somebody? It sure does. Well, if we want to just take a minute now and just take a few breaths, get centered in your chair. Open your mind. Maybe even more than that, open your heart. This is that time for wisdom to enter in. Feel this moment. Perhaps listen with your soul. And a quick reminder too, if you want to check your cell phone, make sure that's off. And I have the joy now of introducing our motivational speaker, Dr. Yvette Erasmus. Yvette is a transformational relationship expert working to create a better world through relational consciousness. That's so necessary, isn't it? Her wisdom includes practical skills for connecting, clarity, and collaboration to shift out of disconnection, fueled by judgment, fear, and defensiveness, into heart-centered conversations that nurture connection, growth, and compassion. Yvette has been with us many times, and that is exactly what she does. I'm always so grateful that she is here to speak with us. You can find Yvette at YvetteErasmus.com, including, if I understand this correctly, Conversations from the Heart podcast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, terrific. She's been with us many times, and it's always full of practical wisdom and very applicable advice. We're very blessed to have you here today, and we're so grateful. Mm-hmm. So please give a round of applause. And welcome to Yvette.
Thank you. Good morning. Oh, it's so nice to see you here today. I always come up here, I always laugh at myself. I come up here with all my printouts that I never look at. But I like having them in my hand because they give me a sense of security. So if I forget something, I can go look at my notes. We're talking today about finding inspiration. And I've been very thoughtful about what I might want to say today about finding inspiration. And so I'm going to tell you a story about a time when I was very deeply inspired. And then I'm going to be asking you to share a story with one another about a time that you've been deeply inspired. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what is inspiration, what are the barriers to inspiration, what are the pathways to inspiration, and what does it really mean to live an inspired life? And of course, for you, living an inspired life will be in alignment with your particular beliefs and values. I will share from mine with the acknowledgement that we may not be the same. So there are many, many moments of inspiration in my life, but I will tell you the story about one that has formed most of the decisions that I have made since it happened. I decided that I was going to go and do a 10-day immersive training with a man called Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who is the founder of Nonviolent Communication, which I had come across while I was teaching in Bali. And I remember thinking at the time, I had read his books, I had applied some of his principles, and I thought, this is kind of cool. I like this stuff. I want to go learn more. I want to go and learn directly from Marshall. So I got myself in an airplane, headed out to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Marshall was doing these intensive retreats with lots of other trainers. And one of the things that he would do is he would sit on the stage, and then he'd just say to someone, who wants to work on something? And then people would volunteer and they'd come up and he would model this healing communication model that he is famous for integrating into the world. And so a friend of mine got up there one day, had been very nervous, and he was like, I don't know if I should do my example or not, it's really important. And I was like, go, get up there. So he got up onto the stage and I knew how important this was to him. And they were getting into some deep, deep healing work. Marshall was working with James, and the room was quiet, and everybody was in this moment, and my cell phone went off. And I was mortified, and I turned, and I'm like, okay, turn it off. And my friend didn't know it was my cell phone, but turned to the audience and swore in huge anger, "Turn that thing off. This is my moment." And I sat there and I'm like, oh my God, I felt like I had just been called out and berated publicly. And then they just went on. And it took me a moment. I was in this moment of shock in the room. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I thought, I can't sit here. I can't even listen. I can't even be present. I was flooded with shame, absolute shame. And so I left the room. I snuck out. And it was a lot like this. Right? You couldn't sneak out easily. And actually, everybody was sitting like right here, and I had to like make my way out. And I was thinking, now I'm going to disrupt again by my leaving. And I left, and I got into the hallway, and I burst into tears. I just started crying, absolutely flooded with emotion. And I was like, and then my shame turned into anger. Right? I don't know if this ever happens for you, but first I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did this. And then I'm like, who does that? Who shouts like that? Who has a reaction like that? And I'm like, oh, but who didn't turn off her phone? So here I am, swinging, and I'm crying. And one of the certified trainers who was at the training followed me and came out into the hallway and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not okay." And he said, "Let's go talk." So we went into a room, and we sat down, and he said, "Tell me what's going on." And I just began all of the stuff. I feel mortified, I feel embarrassed, I feel angry, I'm in shock. Why did he yell at me like that? And it was in public. And so I began telling this story from my perspective of what happened to me, right? And this trainer sat there and did not take sides, listened reflectively, deeply, deeply named and connected with my experience as it was. Not once did I have the experience that I shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling. It didn't matter what I was feeling or what I was saying. This man reflected and mirrored back to me my own experience with the kindest eyes and the most gentle presence and the deepest sense of acceptance. And by the end of an hour, I had gone through everything. We had gone into 5 years old at this point, okay? Because we had gone into my fear of authority fingers and my fear of men, and when men yell at me, it's different than when women yell at me. And everything that needed to come up in that moment had space and room to come up and be heard, and most importantly, be felt. It was safe to feel all of it. There was no vilifying. There was no agreeing that somebody shouldn't have done something. There was no educating about, maybe this will be a good lesson to you in turning off your phone next time. There was no shaming. There was nothing except embodied presence that allowed a huge body of healing work to both arise, move through, be witnessed, and be metabolized. And at the end of that hour, I felt such an amazing sense of groundedness, self-acceptance, calm, and absolute inner peace about everything that had happened. I felt no resentment. I was curious about my friend. It took 1 hour of a particular kind of listening. And that moment, I sat there and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to bring to the world. If this is possible, that you can live in this way and hold this kind of presence and have this kind of a relational field. And if I could learn to respond to people like that, that was a moment of inspiration for me. So let's unpack for a moment what the elements of inspiration might be there. It was deeply aligned with my values. I saw in this person a mirror of something that I could see might be possible in me if I worked at it hard enough and for long enough. But I could see something that I wanted that I could not yet embody. Right? There was a deep need in me for inner peace, for healing, for presence, for acceptance. And there was an example outside of me of something that was possible that had not yet been possible or even experienced in my own life until that moment. Until that moment, it was an idea. It was something that I knew about. It was something that people talked about, but it hadn't been something that I had personally benefited from. Right? So there was a lived experience. And I want to suggest to you today that inspiration happens at the interchange of deep universal human needs that are arising through you in the form of life force energy, and a vision that you have of a possibility that you're wanting to bring into manifest form on the planet. And for each one of us, what that particular chemistry is going to look like is unique to your personality, your talents, your experiences, your beliefs, who you are. But if we're going to start talking today about finding inspiration, it begins with a deep, deep sense of self-connection. And it begins with your relationship with yourself. Okay, so before I go there, let's talk a little bit about what gets in the way of inspiration. Okay, I'm going to give you an oversimplified version today, because everything, when we put it into half an hour or an hour worth of talking, is by necessity an oversimplified version. But if I look at mass consciousness on the planet these days, I see us basically swinging between two extremes. On the one side, we have disenfranchisement. We've given up. We're exhausted, we're tired. Okay, I'm just thinking about the opposites of inspiration right now. Okay? We're exhausted, we're burned out. We don't think we're going to make a difference. We don't think we can make a change. We look at everything in the world around us and we think it's too big, it's too much. We're not the decision makers. We have no power. What is it that I can do anyway? We move into a disenfranchised child state, a victim state. All I can basically do is survive. I'm just going to get on with survival. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other, and I'm just going to get on with the business of living, but I feel like I have no power, I have no inspiration. I'm just making it from day to day. So we have this on the one side. And then on the other side, we have fanaticism. And what do I mean by fanaticism? I mean the people who think that there's a simple and easy answer. I have found it, I have the truth, and I'm going to come impose it on you. So we can move into fanaticism over here when we decide that my beliefs are the right ones, my perceptions are the only ones that matter, my needs are the only ones that matter, my way of seeing and being is what I now get to impose upon all of you bad people, and then you can be good like me. So we have a lot of fanaticism growing up in the world right now and taking over in the world right now. So on the one hand, we have a very simple answer. It's what I think. Follow me, do what I say, get out of touch with yourself, be obedient and compliant, worship me, or worship my belief, or worship whatever it is that I say is right. And when we fall into fanaticism, it can feel very safe and very comfortable because it's an easy answer. And we outsource our authority to other people. And we outsource our authority and our knowing, and we stop thinking critically for the illusion of safety and security. And there's a huge growth of this. This is growing big time right now. And if we're not there, we're over here, disenfranchised. It's a different version of being out of touch with our inner being, with our power. This is where a lot of our inner child wounding is still coming up. All of our unhealed issues with authority figures, with structures that we've been dependent on that have failed us. And there's a lot of hopelessness over here. In the middle of these two extremes, I want to suggest to you a place that you can ground yourself, which is a place in which you do find inspiration. But the path to finding inspiration is very, very different than the path to making things work in the world. Because inspiration, I hate to tell you this, tends to be countercultural. Inspiration tends to ask you to question things in your life. Inspiration invites you to begin being in a way that does not seem to conform to mass consciousness. Inspiration is a tool of waking up. And if we're really going to be waking up, we want to be talking about what are we waking up to? And why would we be waking up? Okay? And before I answer those questions, what I'm going to have you do is just turn to one another. And if you're willing, share about a time when you have felt inspired and a story of inspiration for you. And if you don't have a story of when you've been inspired because it's hard to think about, you can just talk about how you define inspiration in your own life and how it feels when you're feeling inspired. So we'll just take a few minutes and connect with somebody sitting near you. let's wrap up there. I hope that was enough time. Yeah, I hope that was enough time. We can find inspiration externally or internally. Often when I ask people, where do you find inspiration? They'll say, nature. Did nature come up in any of the conversations? Yeah, I see some nodding. We can be inspired by something outside of us, but inspiration is an energy that arises inside of you. It is a part of you. It is a part of your interiority. It is part of your inner being. And while we love to talk about inspiration, like this lovely thing, it's so nice to be inspired because inspiration comes with like a sense of energy. Have you noticed that? Because the word inspire is to breathe life into. That's the etymology of that word. It's an energy that wants to breathe life into something in your life. Now, but inspiration, I would venture to tell you today, actually has a non-personal, universal job. It's part of what keeps us all connected. It has its own wisdom. And it speaks to you through your feelings, and it speaks to you through your needs, and it speaks to you through the things that you care about and want to bring into being. And what you each care about and want to bring into being will be uniquely different than me or from anybody else in this room. Now, there may be some overlap. There are people here who want to bring about healing on the planet. There will be some similarities in those paths. There are also people who want to bring about new structures and want to build new structures and new systems on the planet. They will be called in a different direction, right? When you start listening to the voice of inspiration in your life, it will usually be something you don't want to hear. It will usually be something that you want to put off, that you want to say, not yet. Well, not really. Have you ever done that? There's a knowing. There's a prompting in you. Look for this, do this, don't do that. And then there's another voice, and this voice comes from your mind. And this voice will be dismissive. Oh, that's not so important, right? Let's take something really concrete. We brought up I was noticing as we were going through all this, the events coming up. Let's talk about a recovery group. So let's talk about addiction for a moment. So you have this moment where you're inspired to stop drinking, stop using, get sober, stop shopping, whatever it is that you're compulsively doing. You'll have this knowing, I should really stop this thing. I actually feel like I'm reaching for something different tomorrow. Oh, well, over the weekend, after the holidays, we will negotiate with this voice, right? So you know that old Cherokee story about the elder who talks to the child about the two wolves inside of you, right? One of them is full of fear and anger, and the other one is full of love and compassion. And the child asks which one wins, and he says, the one you feed. And this is a story about how you place your attention. Where do you place your attention? And what do you take seriously? Because the place you place your attention and the things you take seriously are the things that you will be following. And what I'd like to inspire you to do today is learn how to follow things that inspire you when they frighten you. When they frighten you, especially. And it'll happen in the small details of your life. It will be about setting a boundary with a family member that hurts your feelings. It will show up in very small, very doable, practical things in your personal life. It will not be about educating the White House on what they should and shouldn't be doing. It will not be about disarming nuclear weapons For most of us in this room, that's probably not where we're going to be doing that work, although I don't know all of you, it may be. But it will be, whether you choose to watch a particular show or not, where you're spending your money, what kind of world your life energy is standing for, what things you are enabling on the planet by not setting boundaries with them, what things you are allowing to continue by staying silent when you could be speaking up, and what choices you're making for your own well-being. So, if you want to live a really inspired life and you want to find more inspiration, you start by loving up yourself. You start by mattering to yourself. You start by paying attention to the things that you are needing for your own well-being and taking your feelings seriously. Now, when I tell you to take your feelings seriously, I am not telling you to act out your feelings or to believe that because you feel something that suddenly you've found a truth with a capital T. But what you have found when you reconnect to your feelings is inner wisdom, one data point that tells you more about what it is that you are needing and that you are valuing. And your emotions are part of your life force energy. And inspiration moves through you with life force energy. And the more that you repress your feelings, shut down your feelings, let them build up like a pressure cooker inside of you and then act them out for cathartic discharge, the less access you will have to true inspiration. Because part of that voice is getting suppressed and discharged and suppressed and discharged. You're not harnessing or paying attention to the message of those energies. So you begin by attending to how you feel, and you undo the cultural conditioning that your feelings don't matter. And you also undo the cultural conditioning that just because you feel it means you're entitled to behave in a certain way. Okay, there's two pieces of cultural conditioning we get out of. You begin harnessing the energy of your emotions and using them for your well-being. And that means two things that are countercultural. You feel them and you contain them. I'm going to say that again. You feel what you're feeling and you contain it. You notice it, you track it. You name it. You watch it. It is part of your interiority. Venting it unconsciously is not wise. Right? Suppressing it and not allowing myself to know what I'm feeling or telling myself that my feelings don't matter is not wise. We need to develop a different relationship with the life force energy inside of ourselves, and it begins by really having a look at your relationship with your feelings. And then understanding, why do you feel what you're feeling? Because your feelings will tell you about the state of your needs. And when I say needs, I'm talking about things like meaning and purpose and belonging and empathy and being seen. Your desire to matter as a human being, your desire to contribute to the well-being of other human beings, these are universal human needs that human beings have. The desire to make the world a better place. We share this. Now, we have very different ideas about how that's going to happen. Okay? But we share this. If I feel lonely, it means that I need more connection and community. When I take my needs seriously, I can do something about that. When I know that I need connection and community because I'm feeling lonely and I have these needs, and I'm no longer telling myself that there's something wrong with my needs or my feelings, then I can take a very empowered step to do something about my need for connection and community, and I can call a friend. I can walk over to my neighbor's house. I can come to Lake Harriet on a Sunday morning. I can do something, and that gets me out of victim consciousness and into self-responsible living. And when my self-responsible living is coming from a place of deep love and self-acceptance, it's very unlikely that the strategies that I'm going to be choosing are going to be harmful to myself or other people. And when I'm no longer coming out of victim consciousness, I'm unlikely to switch into perpetrator consciousness, and I start freeing myself, liberating myself from what we talked about earlier, disenfranchisement over here, and fanaticism over here. And now what you're doing is you're living with divine life force energy beginning to move through you, because you are now becoming a container that is no longer repressing and acting out. Oh, now you're going to begin harnessing your life force energy, taking responsibility for your life force energy and seeing what is good and life-affirming and energizing and wise about your life force energy. And as you do more and more of this, you become a stronger and more sturdy and more reliable container. And I'm just going to give you a little preview of coming attractions. When you begin making peace with yourself in this way, you no longer see yourself as many cultures here will tell you there's two things that you should spend your energy on. One, fix yourself. Two, serve other people. How many of your lives feel like, yeah, those are the two things you're pretty much trained to do? Go fix yourself because there's something wrong with you. And when you do that, you can serve other people, because your purpose here is to put your own needs aside and make everybody else feel better. So I want to suggest, this is a very distorted form of wisdom, okay? You actually need to get deeply grounded in your goodness, deeply connected to your life force energy, which in a very practical way you will begin practicing as you feel your feelings and connect with your needs. And then you want to get woken up out of your unconsciousness, which is what you do when you take responsibility for choosing strategies that meet your needs. And when you start cleaning up your relationship with yourself in a loving way and telling yourself, I do matter. I'm not going to keep going into this relational environment where people judge me and control me and coerce me and don't see me for who I am. I'm just not going to put myself in these environments anymore. And I'm going to start seeking out the conditions that actually help me settle into who I am, so that I can find the inspiration that is wanting to work its way through my life, that gives me direction about where and what I want to be doing here. And the price of admission is people will not like it. And the price of admission is, along the way, there's a lot of healing work to do. In the story that I told at the beginning, I didn't realize that my phone going off and my shame and rage about it was going to lead to an hour of transformative healing of not only my relationships with people in that room, but also memory systems that needed to get unearthed. One of the things we start realizing is that nothing is ever wrong. Nothing is ever wrong. This moment led to deep healing for me. It led to a lot of processing for the group, for Marshall and James. So much good can emerge out of any given moment. The fact that it feels bad does not make it bad. Right? So when we're finding inspiration, there's some mindsets that we want to cultivate. One of them is work with reality as it is. Work with reality as it is without making it bad. This is a very deep spiritual practice for me right now, because my desire to make everything that I see and hear about bad right now is very high. It's very jacked up. I have a lot of practice to do on this one. But learning how to settle your inner being, get into inner peace again and again as much as you are able, and just work with reality as it is. over and over. I don't know if this is good or bad. I'm going to figure out a way for something good to come out of it, even if I don't like it. I'm going to figure out a way for something good to come out of this, even if it's in my life, in my next step, in my attitude, whatever it is. But inspiration is in touch with reality. It is in response to what is actually going on in the details of your life. It is not a delusion. It is not magical thinking. It is not imagination pulled out of some disembodied reality. It is about a relationship between you and reality and you and yourself. And so you want to get really self-connected and really willing to work with stuff. Another piece is a sense of openness. Inspiration needs a container that is open to hearing it, feeling it, having it move through you. And a sense of openness stands counter to your judgmental self with your dualistic brain, which we all have. So for me, that often means tracking all of the judgments that I have that are going on, all of the dualisms, all of the right and wrongs, all of the good and bads. Seeing that voice, hearing that voice, honoring that voice, acknowledging that voice. But I am not deciding or leading from that voice. Now, I'm not going to repress it, because we're not about repression, we're about whole. And I'm going to get my attention back on the part of me that has courage, my heart. So I'm going to watch the dualistic mind and come back to my heart. Watch the dualistic mind and all of its fears and come back to my heart and all of its cares. Inspiration is very much about contacting what you care about. What do you care about? What is your heart longing for? What matters to you? Not what do you think about it. And it's not that it's not important, but it's not going to empower or fuel how inspiration moves through your life. It's actually going to inhibit it. So if you want to find more inspiration, you want to get your attention and your consciousness down into your heart, and you want to find a place of relaxation and openness. Again, 3 a.m, very difficult for me to do. I wake up in a state of stress and tension and judgment and anxiety. And then the practice is you work with the body. You bring yourself back into the present moment. You get back into what am I caring about? What am I caring about? What am I caring about? And you get grounded in your needs, and you take a step in the direction of meeting your needs so that you interact with yourselves and others from a place of inner peace and groundedness in the goodness of what you are. The goodness of what you are. Okay? In times like these, it's very, very easy to get swept up in the tides of fear and negative predictions and thinking that there's something wrong with us. And I would say that inspiration finds you when you are in a state of deep self-acceptance, deep self-mattering, and deep self-connection. And you may want to think for a moment right now, where do you get disconnected from yourself? Where do you not trust yourself? Where are the places in your life right now where you don't really trust you? And then I would have you ask yourself, what does your heart really care about? What does your heart care about? Because inspiration finds you where you have these deep needs coming up and a grand vision. What is the grand vision in your life? Who do you want to be? What do you want to experience? What are you wanting to contribute? What's your grand vision? It's going to be something that your heart activates around, that your heart cares about. And there's going to be a feedback loop between reality out there and reality in here, and reality out there and reality in here. And you're going to have a grand vision and deep care, and a grand vision and deep care. And I would invite you to cultivate that feedback loop. And when your mind wants to start spinning and your mind generates all of these fears, you come back to my grand vision and my deep needs. My grand vision and my deep needs. And you bring your feelings back online because they will fuel your inspiration and your action and your direction. And then you just take one next step in that direction. Okay? So go out there, activate your hearts, find your grand vision, and have the courage to take a step in the direction of what you want to see more of in the world. And thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was so inspiring. That's terrific. May I ask a follow-up question? When I think of things like grand vision and the like, and thinking about the world, it can be intimidating to think, well, I'm just a small person. You know, I don't have a lot of power. I don't have a lot of influence. How does words like that? Is everyone in here capable of doing this at some level?
Here, I'll share my grand vision in case that helps. My grand vision is to meet every single moment of my life with love. That's my grand vision. It is to bring a loving presence to everything that arises outside of me and within me. That's it. So when I talk about a grand vision, I'm not talking about changing stuff out there. I'm talking about who do you want to be?
Oh, yes.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
You're
really
welcome.
great. How we show up with ourselves, how we live our lives, or how we live our days is how we live our lives. Thank you so much for that. And now it's time for our offering. We are a volunteer organization here. The funding that we have to provide the opportunities that we do here for people comes from the kind gifts of people like yourselves. So thank you.
Never be afraid to love. Never be afraid to just be. Cast away the chains of doubt. Have the courage to be free. Don't cloud your eyes with others' lies. See only what you want to see. Duplicate this simple truth. Have the courage to be free. Open your eyes, you can fly. Open your eyes, you can fly. You can fly. You can fly. Yeah. Never be afraid to love. Never be afraid to just be. You got to cast away the chains of doubt and have the courage to be free. Don't cloud your eyes with others' lies. See only what you want to see. Just duplicate this simple truth and have the courage to be free. Open your eyes, you can fly. Open your eyes, you can fly. You can fly.
Okay.
You can
Terrific.
fly.
Carol and John, if you want to come on down.
Oh.
QR codes if you want to do it that way. You can also give online at lakeharrietspiritualcommunity.org. All of our events are on meetup.com. All right, if you want to raise your hands and repeat with me, please. God's perfect love, flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Aho. Okay, terrific. Hey, did anyone pay attention to the words of that song? Ella, come on, Ella, what did you get from that?
That's what I get for opening my mouth. Well, what I got out of it was just to have courage, and that's one of the things that Yvette mentioned, is having courage. So, courage to me means stepping outside of your comfort zone. Courage to me means facing your fears.
Thank you, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Okay, everyone, now is the time for our closing circle. We're so grateful you were here with us. We look forward to seeing you this week. Why don't we just form all the way around this middle circle? Just grab hands and connect together. Thank you, everyone. Great job. Yvette,
Yeah.
please close and take us powerfully and beautifully into this new week ahead.
Absolutely. Well, I will read you something by David White. Some of you may be familiar with David White's poetry. And this is in the direction of in your own life, in the things that are doable for you. It's the poem called Start Close In. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way of starting the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To find another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes a private ear listening to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Go and follow your heart this week. Thank you for being here. Have a good week, everybody. Yeah, thank you. Oh, God.